Hi everyone, welcome back to And Soph. This is season 2, episode 8. I am your host, Sophie Wade, and this is my podcast for ordinary people with extraordinary impacts. I'm so grateful to be here with you, and I'm so grateful for you still listening through this whole season. I know it has been a roller coaster ride. I wanted to stick to my word of wanting to speak up about things going on that I feel like are very important to me outside of just things that directly impact me. We're also going to be talking about how to build our own platforms to be able to use our voices to speak up, since some people had approached me and have asked me before like how I was able to build my confidence to start a podcast, because I'm known as a more quiet person, a more shy person, and so me doing this I think is still like shocking to some people, and I think more people are wanting to put themselves out there on the internet and just be more vocal, whether that's really lighthearted videos or things like this where it's more of a conversation, it's more vulnerable. So I wanted to also talk about that so that we can take action when it comes to speaking up about things and using our platforms, even to just bring people joy during dark and heavy times. So I'm super excited to do that. So make sure you stay tuned for that conversation. Let's get into it. I don't even want to start this episode without addressing the reality of the world we're living in. It's very easy, I think, to run away and not want to deal with things like that. And I feel like that can be really damaging to our growth as learning how to grow in empathy, and also like towards what we could be doing for others that they may need our skills or our knowledge or our empathy to help them get through this tough time, even if we can't fix everything. In these past couple weeks, there have been a lot of really unexpected rises in ICE raids. That's been a thing that's been happening, but the number has just increased, and more people are at risk of being deported, even if they shouldn't be deported. It's very scary. A lot of families have been separated. A lot of people are afraid to go to work, go to the grocery store. I feel like we knew we were going to be on a roller coaster this year of unexpected things. I had talked about the things with the DEI initiatives earlier this year, and now this is happening. And I do truly believe that it's an issue of humanity. I notice that sometimes when these things come up that have a lot of attention, it can be easy to have different responses. I actually talked to my therapist all about like everything that's been going on. Our brains choose between fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. I just learned what fawn is. It's low-key like a variant of people pleasing. I've basically been learning that there's different ways to fight and show your support for families and individuals that are being affected and hurt. I think that one of the biggest ways people have been able to do that is by protesting and being out on the streets and just really voicing just their dissatisfaction with everything, their anger, their hurt. And I think it's really beautiful to see so many members of the community come together. Some of the different things that I've discovered of looking for different ways to fight as well, I found is being able to support local restaurants that have lost a lot of business because of everything going on, because those are people that are being targeted the most. And there's different organizations that are providing free mental health services for those who have been impacted, because there is so much anxiety and trauma that is attached to this. And there's different organizations that are helping educate others as well. You can donate to those organizations if you are in a place to. If not, you can volunteer your time if you have time. I recently went to the YMCA in downtown LA, and they were basically organizing a bunch of bags of like non-perishable food, so like cans and stuff like that, and different stuff like cereal and like just different groceries that you can get at the grocery store. And they were putting it in a bunch of bags, and they're basically having some different employees like deliver it to different families. And you can simply just check in on people. I think a lot of people are hurting right now, and maybe people you didn't expect to be hurting or be so anxious. I think that it's so important to be able to check on people and hold that safe space for them. I feel like that speaks so much. I think that people just need a space to talk about it. They need a space to vent. They need a space to cry. They're able to have someone who either listens or can reassure them or support them or direct them to different resources and different things like that. And I think by being educated that can start other conversations with other people. And I think the conversation just can't stop when the major attention surrounding this goes down, because there's always different things happening, unfortunately, and new things coming up where people will shift their attention. And then the other issue that was so important, it's still happening and it's still not good, but it kind of becomes slowly less and less talked about or focused on. Being able to find authentically what your strengths are, how you are able to show up and fight during this time, I think is super important, and it'll be something that sticks with you, and you can adjust it with time and based on the season you're in. And I'll have some resources as well in my link tree if you want more information to further educate yourself or to support or anything that I mentioned, I'll have in there. So, but I love you guys, and I'm here for anybody who just needs a listening ear as well. The Anso Pod DMs are open, or if you literally know me personally, you can just reach out, and I'm here. But yes, speaking of our unique roles and speaking up, I want to now get into just being able to build that confidence in the first place. If you feel it on your heart to build a platform maybe similar to this, like a podcast, or if you just want to post videos on like TikTok or Instagram or whatever it may be, and just being able to build your confidence to put yourself out there, if that's something you're not used to, or if you're afraid of it, it's like all kind of new, I got you. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what realistically helps me to actually start and what helps me now to like keep going. I'm not in the same studio today because the whole production, I just didn't have it in me to do that. And I was like, let me just record from home because I just want to say something. I just want to put something out there, but I don't want to wait. That's just one example of being able to make do. Don't let like the logistics of something stop you. Like that can be something that can be learned and practiced. I didn't get a new computer or mics until this season, but last season I had a 2013 MacBook Pro, okay? That thing, it just hated me. It really did hate me. It sounded like it was gonna blow up every time that I used it for editing and things like that. Like it was always crashing, but I made it work because that's all I had, and I didn't have these mics either. Like you could still hear the background noise, and sometimes you can still somehow hear the background noise with these. I'm over it, but like it was all things that I had to get like with time. And it's like you don't know how much you're actually gonna enjoy. Like maybe you'll think you really like posting online, and then you'll do it and you'll be like, actually this is not for me, and you won't want to do it anymore. But it's like after you already invested all this money in all this equipment, and then now it's gonna be collecting dust. So I think it's okay to build your set and your toolkit with time, because I still am. There's so many things that I still want to get, so many things I still want to do. So don't let perfectionism stop you from voicing things that I feel like are so important. I forget like the impact of me doing these podcasts because it is on such a smaller scale. Not everybody is like listening to this, not everybody is watching this. I know the majority of people who listen and watch this, and other people that I don't know, it's like friends of friends. And I was honestly feeling burnt out from making these the other day because I feel like it's so vulnerable to be on here, and sometimes I just don't feel like being vulnerable. I don't feel like being real. I don't feel like showing what's actually like going on in my life, or like talking about difficult things and real things, even though it is really helpful to people. Sometimes like after, I'm just like, whoa. I got a random message the other day, and it was from one of the girls who follows my podcast, and I've met her before, and she's super sweet, and she just sent this message, and she was like, I just wanted to let you know that your podcast means a lot to me, and it's very relatable, and it means a lot to just hear about like the real things that you're talking about coming from like a faith-based perspective and all these things, and like I hope you keep sticking through it. I've been more MIA. That was just really encouraging and like unexpected, and just reminded me that, oh wow, like these do make a difference, and there's probably people out here that want to hear what you have to say or what you have to share with them, and they haven't because you don't want to post, or you're too scared to post, or you don't feel like you're ready to post. But if we let fear and comparison and perfectionism stop us from taking that first step to start, then we're kind of delaying also being able to help other people, as well as growing ourselves. I remember feeling so scared to put out that episode with Blair, and I was like, what if I didn't do well as an interviewer? What if I said the wrong things? What if something that we both said gets misinterpreted? What if people perceive us in a different way? Because we were really just being like our goofy selves, but also being serious. And I feel like that really accurately represents our friendship as well. And in the first episode, there was like a lot of like blooper moments of us just like being goofy. And there was one moment where we were like freestyling. I posted on Instagram, but I didn't include it in the actual podcast because I was like, oh, people aren't going to take me seriously on this podcast if I put that in. But people loved that little clip on Instagram. They thought it was so funny. And they were wondering like why I didn't put it in the actual podcast. And I was like, oh, people want to see that authentic side of you. They want to see people acting human. That's how much we laugh in real life. And I don't know how everybody's perceiving that, but I'm learning who my target audience is. And the target audience is not everybody I know. It's not to please every person I know. It's being able to relate with the right group of people that do resonate with the things I'm talking about in that season of life of your 20s, with mental health, with career, with faith, with relationships, with friendship. My least polished episode I think I've ever done was probably one of the most important ones to me. It was because I was just so nervous and I was also on a time crunch. So I was like, I just need to like record this and leave. And it was the episode of the very last episode of season 1, and it was my episode about Daniela. It was about grief. And I remember I rushed through it. I was like out of breath. And then I just left. And it was like, I just talked about one of the most vulnerable things that I've ever talked about on that podcast, and I did it by myself. I was watching it and I was like, I don't even want to post it. Like, it sounds like I was just talking so fast and like didn't give myself room to breathe. And like, what if this was just too vulnerable? Like, you know, like what if this story was not meant to be shared? But I felt at the time, I was like, I feel like I'm ready to share it. Like, I feel like I'm ready to share this story. And I feel like the way I shared it in that moment, it was authentic. Like, yes, I was nervous. That was like my authentic self in that moment. And I remember I decided to post it, and I didn't know that like a year later, Yesenia would be telling me that she sent it to one of her friends who was actually going through grief and just lost a best friend. Like, I would have never known that in the time before the podcast even started. And I was going through that in the moment of losing Daniela. I never would have thought like I would have been making a podcast talking about my experiences with that and how I've grown and healed to be able to help somebody else that I don't even know. So it's really crazy. And if God puts something on your heart, there's definitely a reason. When I was ready, I'm glad I was able to make that episode. I wasn't ready to do that the first episode of the season, so I'm glad I gave myself that time. And it's okay if you're not ready to talk about certain things. You don't have to force yourself to. Whatever God puts on your heart or whatever you feel has just like been on your mind that you're like, I feel like it's time to talk about this. I feel like I'm ready to talk about this from like a healed perspective, then I would say do it, because you really never know like who you could be helping or who you could be speaking to. And I think even you just talking about it, even if nobody comes up to you after and says, that was really great, I loved it, like it's healing for you as well to talk about. This podcast has been healing for me. And I remember I went to church one day and AJ Johnson, shout out to AJ if you're watching this. He's just like an honorary uncle to me. And he was there when I was growing up in the same church. And he pulled me aside at church when I was like about to leave. And he was just like, I listened to your podcast. And he said, you almost made me cry. And AJ is not the type to cry at all. And he was like, I think that Daniela would be so proud of you. And I think my wife would be so proud of you. And his wife, Sydney, she was a big part of just being able to be like a mentor in my life as well. She was also in that church. She's also no longer with us, and hearing that meant the world. And so it's like the impact of what you put in online and your voice is so much deeper than you think. I can't emphasize that enough. And so I just encourage you guys to share from a place of healing and freedom instead of a place of fear. And I think that'll motivate you a little bit to start that first episode, or at least start the conversation with somebody about, hey, like I'm thinking of doing this. Like, what helped you. And like I had a conversation with my friend Priya recently, and it was really nice to be able to talk to each other about that because I see her popping off. I see her popping off, and you don't have to be viral to be impactful. But if you see you already picking up, if you see you already picking up a little bit and you're like, should I continue this? Have a conversation with some of your friends, maybe doing similar things, or have a conversation with somebody who's like, hey, like, could I be at your studio? Could I check out your studio? Could I learn from you? Like, would you mind helping me film this? Like, it just takes one conversation to change everything. So, next, we're gonna talk about something that I think a lot of us really struggle with in general of like the fear of being fully seen by others can also stop us from using our voices to create impacts because when we're being our most vulnerable and authentic self, it's great, it's good, it's healing, but we don't know how other people are going to react to that. For me, at least, I experience feelings of like, I'm afraid that my friends are going to abandon me once they hear like my true thoughts on things or whatever. Or I was afraid of being rejected by the people that I love and I care about and I look up to, and the people that I care about what they think. And I was afraid that they were going to reject the things that I was saying or reject this new passion that I had or not take it seriously. So there was just a lot of thoughts going through my head when I was first thinking about how are people going to take this. And I think that I grew up believing that to be fully seen is to risk not being fully loved anymore. And I think that's also why I was so shy growing up too, because different parts of me that were actually really loud, really expressive, I just didn't allow myself to show that to other people for a long time because I was afraid that they wouldn't love me anymore or accept me for that version of myself, if that makes sense. And so sometimes I held back or I just tried to go with the majority opinion or what everyone else thinks or stay in my comfort zone. But what if I told you that being seen can also mean being even more loved? I think that there's so many people that want to see different sides of you, the authentic, expressive side of you, or you sharing things that maybe you were afraid to share with the world before, and they might be so much more connected to you because of that. Sometimes you feel like really shy, or your voice feels like unimportant again, or you kind of shrink in a room where there's a lot of really more comfortable, confident, or what can appear to be confident, showing them my real personality in less than 5 months. They're still here, like they didn't leave. For me, it's still only been like a little over a year. Some people have done this for like 10 years, some people have done this for 5 years. And like it takes time. It takes time to get used to things. There's some things that I just don't share about on here, some stories that I think are just meant to be kept. It's between me and God, where, I'm gonna deal with it. I'm gonna deal with it off the pod and it's gonna be okay. Or that's just gonna be between me and that person. And, I don't wanna share anything that's not from a healed perspective or isn't something that I wouldn't want somebody else to hear if they were listening to this. So it's still good to have that discernment as well, but don't let that learning the discernment intimidate you or cause like fear in you from even just trying to figure out, okay, what should I share, what should is maybe not helpful to share right now in this moment, but you will figure it out. Sometimes I'll listen back to an episode and I'll be like, what did you mean by that? Like, what did you mean by that? We've lived and we've learned, we're here now. Lastly, confidence isn't something that you wait for, it's something you practice. And that's one of the biggest things that I wish I could have told myself when I was first starting this podcast and starting to really use my voice. I wouldn't describe myself as a confident person before. Like sometimes I'll do something that's really bold and like could seem confident, but I was like, overall, I don't think I'm a confident person. I like to blend in with the crowd. I like to keep the peace. I like to do what's familiar to me. I just felt like this was like a missing piece of my life, and I just kept feeling like getting that reminder of like, I want to start a podcast. I want to start talking about a lot of these things that I talk about with my friends that I feel like other people need to hear too. And so I don't think that confidence is something that I would use to describe my personality before, but I feel like it's still something that I had, and it just wasn't something that was really being used to its full potential. The reasoning behind starting this, I think that was the way it's meant to be. I feel like it's something that's going to keep me level headed for however long I decide to record podcast or not record podcast, because I don't know what's going to come of me continuing to post or whatever, put myself out there. But I know that the reason why I'm doing it is for my best friend, and it's doing it to honor her, and it's doing it to bring people together. It's doing it to share about important things, to be a safe space for people who come onto the podcast, to be a safe space for people who listen to the podcast, and to impact people to be a change who are our age. I guess a question for you to consider if you're listening to this is if you think confident is a word that you would use to describe your personality and why. Maybe there's other areas that you feel less confident in that are holding you back from wanting to put yourself out there in different ways, creatively or just by talking. What makes you think that you can't build your confidence in that area too? If you feel confident in these other areas, like, it's really interesting because I'll be like, I have a whole podcast, and yeah, I feel afraid to come up to this person and say hi. And yet I feel afraid to come up to people and say, I don't know what I'm doing, I need help. And so confidence does not equal perfectionism either. Sometimes our confidence doesn't come until after we take those steps to do things, but you might not feel it in the beginning because of your own insecurities, your own past. Just practicing how to communicate and be vulnerable with people is something that you can practice just in your normal life, and I think it'll flow into the other things that you do. The boldest choices I've made on this podcast that have shown more of my confidence, I think, has been having on a variety of friends, and not just friends that I'm super, super close with. Like, there's been so many reunions on this podcast, which is really cool. Like, with friends from college, friends from elementary school, like, and I think that was a bold choice to do because when I first started, when I was thinking of people to have on, I was thinking of people that I'm super, super close with, talk to almost every day, that I would feel the most comfortable with. But when it came to other people that I was like, it would be really cool to have them on here and honor them and highlight them and uplift whatever they want to say, I was like scared because I was like, well, I haven't talked to them in a really long time. So what if they're just like, they don't respond, or they're just like, no thanks. No thanks. I'm not interested in your little podcast, girly. I don't do well with the rejection. I will take it. I will take the rejection. But on my own, I'll be like, they hate me. Girl, it always works out and we end up having a great time, and it aligns for us to be at the same place at the same time, and we're able to reconnect and learn so much more about each other and just grow in a deeper connection outside of just liking our Instagram stories and saying happy birthday. So I would just say to focus on creatively expressing whatever your deeper mission is, and not focusing so much more on having a perfect performance, or for literal actual performance, like analytics, like how many likes is this getting, how many comments is this getting, how many people are saying that they really like the podcast. Even if you have a really strong mission, you can still sometimes get caught up in that because it's a lot of hard work that you can put into putting yourself out there online. At the end of the day, even if you do get a little bit of attention or a lot of attention, like, it's never going to fully fulfill you at the end of the day. So that brings us to the very end of our episode. Thanks again for listening in this week. Thank you to the people who have been just supportive of me just doing the best I can. If you're watching this on YouTube, hey, thanks for joining on YouTube, and make sure that you're subscribed to Ansof's channel so that you don't miss an episode. There's a little notification bell, and I think it'll tell you every time an episode's out. And on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well, you can also turn the notifications on. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok. InSoph is on Instagram at InSophPod and on TikTok at InSoph. I'm excited to see y'all start putting yourselves out there in the summer, start using your voices this summer, even if it doesn't look like starting a whole podcast, if it just looks like posting videos online, that could be a way to use your voice, or even offline, just having more bold conversations with people and vulnerable conversations. I feel like can make such a difference. Like, I feel like there's been so much going on, like every month there is just new things happening. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to connect with our community. We need to be there for others, be the community that other people don't have. Yeah, your voice really matters more than ever in your personal life and in the world, to speak up. I will see you guys in the next podcast, which I'm so excited for. We're going to be back in the studio with a friend, so it's going to be super fun. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye.